Okay, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, in the name of God, the most gracious, the most merciful. Welcome to A-Level Maths live lesson. It's factorizing today, beginning a new series of mini lessons on factorizing. So let's take you from the beginning and just take a look at a single number. This is the number 24, and just think of rewriting 24 as two numbers that multiply to get 24. So just as a very simple example, 2 times 12 makes 24. So any number that can make the 24, as long as we're using multiplication, any number that can make 24 is called a factor. So here, the 2 can make 24, it's a factor of 24. The 12 also can make the 24, it's a factor of 24. I can also use 6, 6 can make 24, because 6 times 4 is 24. 24 can be used to make 24, because 24 times 1 is 24. And there's others, 3 is a factor of 24. 3 can make 24 because 3 times 8 is 24. And then if I rewrite these but the other way around, then 12 can make 24 because 12 times 2. So 4 and 12 and 1, these are all factors of 24. It's a number that can make the number in question, the number you're talking about. The factors can make that number. So when we look to factorize, it's a lot to do with the factors, but we don't want to just pull out any factor. You want to be able to look at two numbers and you need to be able to pull out or recognize the factor that can make both of them. And you always want to go with the highest number possible. So looking at 40, looking at 24, you're starting to think of the factors, trying to think which factor has the ability to make both of them. And you could choose small ones like 1. 1 can make 40, 1 times 40. 1 can make the 24, 1 times 24. But you don't want to pick small ones, you want to pick the biggest one possible. So think, and if you want to get if you really want to get good at math at A-level, you have to be able to pick factors instantaneously. So here with 40 and 24, you want to be able to say 8. 8 can make both of them. So 8 can make the 40, and 8 can make the 24. Try another pair. Let's go with 35 and 50. So just by looking at the numbers, just trying to pick which is the highest factor that can make both of them. Try another one. If you can spot the answer for either one of them, just type it into the chat box and I can then take it from there. So when you're looking at 35, you're looking at 50, you've got to be able to pull out the common factor, the factor that can make both the 35 and the 50. In this case it's 5, because 5 can make 35. 5 can also make the 50. Take a look at the 48, the 32. Did you get the factor that can make both? And you want to pick the highest one. We know 1 can, we know 2 can, they're the easy ones, but The tricky bit is picking the highest one. In this case it's 16. 16 can make the 48. 16 can also make the 32. So once you get good at recognizing the factor that can make both numbers, so you're looking at 40, you're looking at 24, and straight away you can spot the 8 can make both of them, then you can say, or the next level up is then to be able to rewrite that question using brackets and using the common factor 8 just at the front once. So we can say that to get 40 plus 24, because I recognize that 8 is a common factor of the 40 and the 24, then I can get that same, I can rewrite that same question, 40 plus 24, as 8 times 5 and 8 times 3, or more succinctly, more elegantly, a lot nicer, I can write it as 8 times, in brackets, 5 plus 3. See how I'm pulling out the common factor to the front of the bracket. So there's the 8 from the 8 times 5 and the 8 from the 8 times 3. They're both getting pulled out to the front. And then you've got what's remaining going in the brackets. And this technique is called factorising. It's taking a question like 40 add 24, spotting the common factor, and then pulling it out to the front with the pair of brackets to cover everything else that gets left off. And then just to check, do we get the same answer? 40 plus 24, we know that's 64. If we do it this way, 5 plus 3 is 8, times the 8, that makes 64 as well. So both give you the same answer, but it's the technique you want to know, the technique you need to try and understand. How do we change from one version of the question to another version by pulling out the common factor? So let's just try it on the left hand side, on the right hand side. Same technique. Looking at the 35 and the 50, we already figured out 5 is the common factor. So let's rewrite that question. Instead of writing 35 and 50, instead of writing 5 times 7 and 5 times 10 separately, let's pull out the common factor of 5 and then use brackets for the rest. 7 plus the 10. It'll still give you the same answer, but it's just a different way of writing the question, and it's called factorising. And then the last one, you want to pull out the common factor, which is 16. And we don't need to write times anymore. Whenever you have a number and a bracket, you just automatically think there's a times in between. So you've got 3, and then the takeaway, and then the 2. So notice how we've pulled out the common factor of 16 from both the 16 times the 3 and the 16 times the 2, leaving just the 3 and the minus 2 to go in the brackets. So that's very, very easy, just so that you understand what's going on. But then you need to take it up to the next level, which is when we throw in some algebra as well. So if I just start off simply, if I just say I've got 8y and I've got 20y. can you spot the factor that can make both? Well, it's not just 4. 4 can make 8 and 4 can make 20, but I need to make the y as well. So the common factor would be 4y, because 4y times 2 can make the 8y, and 4y times 5 can make the 20y. And let's imagine there was a plus in between. So then rewriting this question, 8y add 20y, in a nicer way, we'd pull out the 4y, which is the common factor, to the front. Imagine a times sign, which we don't need to write. And then inside would be the 2, and there's a plus here, plus the 5. Again, what's happened is the common factor, the 4y, has been pulled to the front, leaving the 2 and the 5 in the brackets. Okay, it still works out to be the same. 8y plus 20y would be 28y. And then 2 plus 5 is 7 times the 4y. That makes 28y as well. But here we're not, the point, what you're trying to learn isn't to get the answer, but it's to be able to rewrite the question in a different way. This is called factorizing. And you're pulling out the common factor. Okay, and then let's go to a slightly higher level. So this is an x. Let me use 16. Let's use a couple of powers. Y cubed. Let's use y squared. When you're doing this, you don't have to write as much as I'm writing. You should hopefully be able to just do it, most of it in your head. But the only reason I'm just breaking it out is so you can understand it if you haven't seen it for a while. So here you're looking at 16xy cubed, you're looking at 20x squared y, and you're thinking, what factor can make both? And you're trying to go for the biggest one. So think about it. What factor can make both? Well, I know that 4 can make the 16 and the 20, but that's not enough. I need to make the x as well. So I could have 4x, but that's not enough because they both have y's. So I need to be able to make the y, so that's going to be a y. So it looks like 4xy is the common factor. Just to check, can I use 4xy to make the 16xy cubed? Yes. I would just need to multiply it by 4y squared. Can I use 4xy again to make the second part? Yes, I should be able to. I can multiply by 5x, and that will give me the 20x squared y. So I've managed to identify my common factor, and then it's just a question of pulling that to the front of the brackets. So the 4xy can come to the front. Imagine there's a minus from the first minus in between, and then what's left can go inside the brackets. And that's your factorized answer. You can check by multiplying it out. You've got the 4xy times the 4y squared. That's going to make the 16xy cubed. And then you've got the 4xy times the minus 5x. That's going to make minus 20, x squared, and the y, so everything looks good. Okay, just a couple of easy ones for you to try, and then we'll try going to the real level that we're trying to get to, but don't want you to get lost, so just try to factorize this one first, and then try a slightly harder one. Okay, and when you're ready, please just type your answer in the chat window. Try to spot the common factor first. Try and pull that to the front of the brackets. Okay, just one more minute for you to have an attempt at this. Okay, any answers yet? Would be very interested to see what you've got. Hopefully the first one wasn't too hard. And just a few more seconds. Okay, let's see how you did. First, 50x cubed and the 60x common factor, we need a 10. That'll make the 50 and the 60. 10 times 5 and the 10 times 6 would make the 60. So the common factor in terms of the numbers would be 10. But I need to make the x's as well. So the common factor here that would make both the x and the x cubed would be an x. So putting that together, I'm going to have 10 x on the outside. That would be the factor I need to be able to make both. So 10x times 5 would make the 50, but I need to make x cubed as well. So that's going to need 5x squared altogether. And then the same 10x, how can I use that to make the 60x? Well, that's easy, I just need it times by 6. And there's your first bracket done. Second one, notice how I've left out most of the working that I was showing you before. That was really just so you understand what's going on, but once you realize you just need to pull a common factor out to the front, that can really be done in your head, and then what goes in the brackets to use that common factor to multiply with to make the numbers you had at the beginning. That's again can be done in your head. It doesn't really take too much writing down. Second one, we have the 14xy to the power 4. the 21x cubed y squared. What's the common factor here? What factor can make both? Let's see if anyone's got... good, well done Aisha, very fast. So you're right on the common factor. We're going to need a 7 to make the 14 and the 21. We're going to need a 7x to then be able to make x, and then the 21x cubed is also going to need an x as the common factor, and that's still not going to be enough. We need to make the y's as well, so it's going to be a y. Now be careful on the y. Y as a common factor can make y to the power 4 because I just times it by y cubed. Similarly, it can make y squared because I just times it by another y. But the idea is always to get as much as you can at the front pulled out so that it's the highest factor possible. Now that y can be increased to y squared. So y squared will allow me to make y to the power 4, and y squared will also allow me to make y squared. So always go for the highest power possible and then carry on with that. So to make the 14x y to the power 4, what am I going to need? I've got 7xy squared, and I need to multiply that by 2. So the 7 times 2 will make the 14. I don't need any more x's. X's is enough. Y squared, I need to make it up to y to the power 4. So y squared will do the trick. And then comes the minus. And now looking at the 21x cubed y squared. Starting with the 7 and times that by 3. That will help me make it up to 21. The x will not be enough to make x cubed. I'm going to need x squared. And then y squared is enough, so I don't need any more y to make it up to the y squared. Okay, and then you can just check your answer. Okay, time for something a lot harder. This is the level you want to work at. So let's get this nice and big. Okay, factorize all of this, and we're going to skip the words. You know what needs to be done. What the question's asking for is to factorize this expression here. And I'm going to leave it to you. It's the same technique. Take a look at the terms. Try to think what's the common factor that you can pull out to the front. And once you've pulled that out to the front, think what would go inside each part. You've got 3 gaps to fill in the brackets to try and make it back up to what you had to begin with. Okay, take a minute or two, see how you do. Okay, well done if you've got the common factor starting with a2. just a few more seconds to see if you can finish that off. If you've got the answer quick, if you've got the answer by now, that's very quick. Feel free to type it into the chat window. Okay, in a second or two I'll go through this. Okay, let's start. We have a couple of numbers to look at, the 2, the 4, the 14. Common factor there that we can pull out is 2. Looking at the next letter that's coming in each one, we've got an x. We've got x cubed, but not, the others don't go quite as high to x cubed, so x squared is present, and we're going to take x squared because x squared is common to all of them. I can use the x squared obviously to make x squared in the second and the third one, and timesing by an x would allow me to make it the x cubed in the first one. So x squared is as much as I can pull out. Y is only present in the second and the third. It's not present in the first, so that's not a common factor to everything. So I can't pull out y. The z is in common, and I can use that to make everything else. So that's another common factor I can pull out. So I've got 2x squared z. That's your common factor at the front. And then just looking at the first term, what else do I need so that I can multiply with the 2x squared z and get this answer here? Well, I don't need any more numbers because 2 is already been pulled out and that's the only number there. So I've got the 2 already. I'm going to need another x because x squared isn't enough, so I'm going to need an x. Will I need anything else? No, because the z is already there at the front, so that's fine. 2x squared z is the common factor, and all I need in the first part of the bracket is the x, and that's fine. That will make the first term. Looking at the second term, what do I need? Well, to make the 4, I'm going to need to multiply by 2. X squared I already have. The y is not at the front, so I'm going to need a y here. The z I already have, so that's fine, that should do the job. And then finally, looking at the 14, how am I going to make 14? I'm starting with 2, so I'm going to have to times by 7. X squared I already have. Y squared, I don't have even y, so I'm going to need the full y squared. And z I already have. So that's the factorizing done, and just check by expanding out, just mentally take the beginning common factor and just multiply it in your head. If that was multiplied with the x, would I get 2x cubed z? If I took that and multiplied by the 2y, I'd get this, that's fine. And then just check the last one. 2 times 7 makes the 14. X squared is there, times the y squared, and the z is there. So that's fantastic. Well done. If you've got that, no z on the outside. If you missed the z on the outside, that's fine. These are just examples to practice with. Once you do a couple of them and make mistakes, then you realize, okay, that's the main principle. You look for anything that's in common and you stick that at the front. Okay, good, well done. Thanks for attending today, and for more factorizing, join me tomorrow, inshallah, at 9 p.m. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Peace be with you and the blessings of God.